My name is Alli Funchal and I'm a sports reporter, talk show host, and I have my own brand called Sports with Alli. I want this segment to not only empower women in sports at the moment, but also inspire young girls, and I want them to know that no matter what, there is always a spot for them at the table in the industry. So without further ado, welcome to Empower Women in Sports Wednesday. Hello everybody, it's Aaliyah and welcome back to another week of Empower Women in Sports Wednesday. Thank you for all of the support on episode 1. I really appreciate it, and I know that the other women in sports also appreciate it as well. This is quickly becoming a segment that is building such a great community, and I'm so excited for it. So with that being said, this week's guest is someone that I honestly never thought I'd get a chance to interview because she has the coolest job ever. So I was like, wow, I get to interview her? That's so cool. I think a lot of you watching at home will really want to just listen to what she has to say because this is a job that is so many people's dream job. So without further ado, here's this week's guest.
Hi, I'm Alli Pinter. I'm the social media coordinator for the 76ers.
As you can see from her intro video, Alli is literally the coolest person ever and has the coolest job. She is in charge of social media for the Sixers, but has formerly worked for the Packers and went to the University of Alabama. So I know that's a lot of people's teams right there. I know I have a lot of people that follow me that love those teams. So if you want to learn more about Alli, keep on watching. Alli grew up playing sports, but she never really thought that she would work in sports. She just thought she was going to go into marketing and not really be involved in the sports industry. But then she realized that the sports industry is her calling and it's somewhere where she could truly thrive.
So I grew up playing sports. I played soccer, so I wanted to be like my sister and wasn't very good at it. So I got really into lacrosse. And the week before I was going to play in like a college showcase and have people come and give me offers, I blew out my knee and couldn't play anymore. It didn't heal properly. Like that dream was over for me. And I was trying to figure out, what I'd want to do next. Cause I, always thought like I really wanted to be a professional athlete. And my mom had brought up marketing to me as, just a lot of things I liked in my personal life and things I like to do. And so I went to the University of Alabama and studied marketing. And while I was there, I struggled with my grades a lot. So I never really thought that I could make it into sports because I never really had the GPA to meet a lot of those, requirements that you need to have, like the 3.0, the 3.5. And so I wanted to get more into like brand and digital and social marketing. And I got involved with a lot of the like on-campus organizations, anyone that would kind of let me volunteer with them. And it led me to work for Alabama's hockey team. And I did that for a semester before I had applied for the Nashville Predators had a marketing internship for their spring semester. And I was sitting there, there's no way I'm going to get this, no way I'd be considered. And my best friend had made me apply, and I called them about 2 weeks after I'd applied just to kind of follow up. I'd actually called their vice president of communications because I didn't know who to contact, who to email. That was the phone number I could find, and I didn't think I was going to leave a voicemail, and I left the most awkward, uncomfortable voicemail ever. And I was like, I just blew it. I'm never going to hear from them. And a week after that, I got an email saying that their marketing internship was filled for the spring, but that they'd love for me to come and shadow and to reapply for the summer. And I was still like ecstatic. I was like, that's awesome. Like, thank you. And while we were planning for me to come up and come shadow, they actually ended up having an opening for the original internship I applied for. And I went through the interview process, and I did that for the spring semester and extended that actually through the summer before my senior year. So I was there for about 8 months doing stuff with their hockey team, as well as like their concerts, all the local events. And then my senior year, I didn't really have anything. I didn't really have any plans for internships. And there happened to be an opening with the athletic department. One of my friends had sent me, and that was like a dream for me. Like ever since I was young, I just loved Alabama football. And I was like, this would be amazing. and ended up getting that. And I spent my senior year doing social media for their football, for basketball, and a little bit for like gym and baseball. And I got lucky while I was there that the SEC tends to need like volunteers for their events that they do. And I ended up getting selected to go volunteer for them for their men's basketball tournament. And that was awesome. That was what really kind of opened up a love of like basketball for me, was just being in there and, getting to see just like the hype and the atmosphere. And I just fell in love with it then. And when I graduated, I ended up taking a role with the Green Bay Packers. And I had spent my first year out of college working on their social team. And just this past February, is when I accepted my job with the 76ers now as their social coordinator. And that's just kind of where I've been ever since.
Something that I noticed when talking to Alli is that she is very humble, and she kept saying, I didn't think I was going to get the job. I didn't think I was going to get the call back. And it made me think about imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is something that I have dealt with personally, and I know a lot of other people have dealt with too. It's a big part of mental health, and honestly, I brought it up not knowing if Alli experienced it or not, but I wanted to ask her about it. And it turns out she has also experienced imposter syndrome. And I think the most important thing is that we are bringing attention to it, that it is normal to think that you don't deserve something if you get a great position or get a job or get to do a really cool thing. You start to doubt yourself and your work. And that is normal and that is okay. But I just want it to be clear that no matter what, you deserve to be where you're at. Here's what Alli had to say about her own journey with imposter syndrome.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome is definitely very real. It's I struggle with that every day, a lot of times worse than others. It's something I don't think a lot of people talk about, because I didn't really even know it was a thing until, a couple months ago, someone had, posted like a Twitter thread about how they were feeling and the imposter syndrome. And that's when it kind of clicked for me, like, I'm not alone. This isn't just like me doubting myself or not feeling like I deserve to be where I am. And it's really hard, especially when, all of our work is so public. Everything we do, anyone can go and look at and, pull up the most recent 5 posts and be like, oh, they did that. That's so awful. Or, you see things that other people are posting and you're like, wow, I wish I could do that. Why am I not good enough to be doing that? And it's kind of something that I personally struggle with. It kind of just, it sits in the back of my mind a lot. I get a lot of self-doubt, and like almost everything I do, it's a really tough thing to struggle with. I'm lucky that my current boss is really supportive of that. And I'm able to kind of like talk to him about it and work through it. But I think a lot more people struggle with it than I think I ever realized. It kind of was just like, it's just me, I'm alone. And the more that I've seen people open up and talk about it has actually, it helps a lot to be able to talk to other people and, to get that reassurance of like, it's not just you, it's just kind of the nature of the industry. It just kind of can take a toll on your mental health a little bit and that self-confidence in your work.
I follow a lot of social media coordinators or managers on Twitter, and something that I've realized a lot of them say, and as a sports reporter, I definitely agree with this, is that it is so hard to turn off social media or your job from your life, because a lot of us use social media for fun and for our personal lives, but then when social media is your job, it's hard to find that balance. And Alli is definitely still learning how to balance everything, and it's an ongoing battle, but she definitely has worked her way through how to, be constantly on for your job and social media, but also take those mental health breaks and breaks from social media as well.
That's something I'm still in the progress of learning how to balance the personal life and social media, and having to feel like you need to be on 24/7, and it's hard because in an aspect you kind of do need to be on because there's certain trends and things that you don't want to miss. But the thing that I learned earlier this fall is I had kind of just taken some time off we had a bye week, and I just deleted all the social apps off my phone. I was like, I'm unplugging, not talking to anyone, like nothing. And after that week, I'd kind of realized just how much more refreshed I felt. And so I'd kind of made note of it like more and more, that when I'm feeling really overwhelmed, or when I find myself scrolling through and like doubting my work and just looking through at everything and just feeling just mentally exhausted, I just honestly, I just delete my personal accounts from my phone. Like I keep the team accounts logged in because, part of, I can't ever delete that. But a lot of times, like I've gotten really good about, I just delete my personal accounts and I just log off. I tell people that need to reach me like, hey, I'm gonna log off for a couple days. Like if you need to text me, like this is what's happening. And it's not always easy, and I kind of feel a little guilty sometimes because again with social, it's a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week job, and that's what we've been kind of taught, is that you always need to be on. But I found, especially with this pandemic and the way the world has been right now, just how important it is, because we just see so much online too. There's just so much toxicity that you see like in the comments, and not even like things that could be directed at you, but also at the accounts you manage. It just takes such a mental toll that it's just so important to find that time that you just log off, you don't look at it. And so important to build like that support system. Like I have a few people I talk to in the industry of like, I am exhausted today, like what are you doing today to unplug? Like there's a lot of really awesome people in the industry that started Zoom calls and like group chats. And I think over the past couple of months it's been really cool to see how many people open up about how much they struggle with it, and how they unplug. And it's just kind of gotten rid of the stigma of like you have to be on, and that it's helped a lot to see other people kind of sharing their struggles and how they feel, to kind of help me unplug more and feel less guilty about doing it.
I am so glad that Alli is such a mental health advocate, and I think that this segment is going to touch on that a lot, because mental health needs to be talked about more regardless of what industry you're in. So I'm so happy that Alli shared her story with mental health. And now her story about being a woman in sports literally gave me chills when I was interviewing her. I honestly felt like I was going to start crying, because she just spoke so eloquently and so powerfully, and so many things that she said I've actually faced too.
Because I've never really talked about it all that much. Like when I was wanting to get in sports, it was always just, you're told that like the harassment and the sexism is just like part of the job. Like that was just kind of instilled in me, that it's like, you just got to deal with it. And there were so many little things over the years that I just kind of, swept under the rug, or, I didn't think twice about how messed up they were, because it was always instilled in me of like, this is what you get being a woman in sports. And it's not the way it should be. Like picking between abuse and your job because you're a woman should never be a choice that you should have to make. You should never have to, leave somewhere that you love because you're being either verbally or sexually harassed. Like that should not still be a thing. And the fact that it is it's a really hard reality to kind of deal with. And when the news had kind of broke about Washington, it kind of just, it opened up like Pandora's box for me of all these things I'd kind of just like suppressed over the years, and like never talked about and never really acknowledged. And then I kind of logged off social again. I felt like the mental health, I was like, I am really emotional, like I don't want to revisit this, and I logged off. And I ended up opening up Twitter again later in the night, bad habit, but kind of scrolling through and seeing the way so many women I looked up to sharing their stories, and so many things that I had also experienced, and things that I hadn't even thought were an issue, because again, I kind of just figured, oh, it's part of the job, had kind of encouraged me to speak out. And the tweets that I had put out, I honestly just started typing and pushed send and logged off and checked it later, and seeing like the traction it got. And I was really nervous because, people don't speak up because they're scared of losing their job. They're scared of not being taken seriously, and, being labeled as like that woman in the workplace, that the people that don't actually know you, that's what your experience is what they pin on you as that's just who you are. And, you don't want to be known for that. And, I know I struggled with it a lot when I was an intern because you don't want to speak up because, you're not in a secure role. You're not in this full-time role. It's, you're an intern, you're here to volunteer and learn, and that's it. And so, working at a place and being told that I wasn't allowed to have an opinion, that my job was to be there and be someone to look at and to sit and look pretty instead of to be there to offer ideas and to better accounts. That was something I'd kind of like swept under the rug as like, you know what, it's an intern, they treat you like garbage because that's part of it. And the quizzing that happens in job interviews and the quizzing that happens from fans and friends even of, because you're a woman talking about sports, there's a certain part of men that feel insecure about that. And the fact that that is an issue, that a woman knows her shit about sports, the fact that that is an issue to them is astounding to me. I mean, some of the DMs that I would get on game days from, all across the board of, when a team loses or a team's winning, or if I want to post a photo of myself on the sideline, the comments that you get back, it's disgusting. And it's really hard that that's a part of the job. And I think it's really important that people, when they feel comfortable, talk about it, because for so long, again, like the imposter syndrome, I thought it was just me. I thought I was the only one dealing with it. This wasn't a thing anymore. And I didn't really have, when I was getting started out, there weren't a whole lot of women in these like higher up positions in social. And so I didn't have a lot of friends across the industry yet and didn't have people to talk to. And so I never really had someone to look up to be like, they've dealt with this too, like things get better. So that's why I think it's so important to share these other experiences and the things that we deal with, because when you're a young woman wanting to get in and you're dealing with it, it can be exhausting. And I don't want like a young woman to be dealing with these things and to feel like she's so alone that she needs to leave the industry. Like there is always like room at the table for women, and the things that we deal with shouldn't still be prevalent. There was something that there was one of the tweets that I had seen that someone had spoken up about women not wanting to tag players in their photos or in their work or in their posts. And I'd had this experience that, I was posting my work because, I was proud of it, wanting to showcase it, and, not thinking twice about like tagging players. And, I'd had a couple guys respond back of, how much they loved it, how it was awesome, like, thank you for it. And some of the DMs that I had gotten from people asking if I was sleeping with players, comments that have been made by coworkers. I'd gotten in trouble in the past for posting like that about my work because they viewed it as me trying to get in with the players and trying to be friends with the players and build my personal accounts, and being told I wasn't allowed to do that. But the double standard of my male coworker is doing the exact same and bragging about texting the players and hanging out with them was something that really tore me down for a while, because I had been giving so much of my life to that job and trying to prove myself and learning every possible thing I could to be like the best version of myself I could be. And I was still viewed as someone that was doing it because I wanted to be friends with the players instead of someone that was just good at their job and trying to be proud of the work they're doing. And the double standard that comes from that, and the fear that I see so many like women have about posting the work they have and having players comment on it or interacting with players when they're on the sidelines, And then men go and they do the same thing and everyone applauds them like, bro, that's so cool. You're in with the players. And like, without even stopping to consider, that's not why we're in this. We work in this because we love sports. We love what we do. And whether that's you work in social, you work in design, you work in content, you work as a reporter, it's because you want to tell those stories and you want to do it in the capacity of whatever that role is that you have, not because you want to be best buddies with the players and you want the personal recognition. Like, that's never it. And the fact that people still view that way and they look at you having some sort of friendship with a player in a negative light is still something, like, to the fact that we still deal with that to this day is really disgusting. Honestly, it makes our jobs more difficult and honestly can be kind of like disheartening that people still don't view you as a hard worker, but rather as someone who's, again, just trying to be friends with the players. The funny thing too, though, that I think that really hit me hard when I realized is, it's not always men that are the issue. Sometimes, it's women. Like, you need allies, and you would think that every woman that's in sport is going to be your ally as well. And that's not always the case. And that was a really hard reality of, just the natural competition that lives in our industry, and the women who, instead of wanting to break that ceiling, are wanting to be a part of the boys club and aren't on your side. Some of the reactions that I've gotten from, fellow coworkers or friends or things that I've dealt with, it's disheartening to know it comes from women too, and that, it's not always a sexual thing. Sometimes it's verbal too. It's, not letting you share ideas in meetings. It's not letting you lead the charge on campaigns. Like, just so many tiny, like, microaggressions that people just overlook and you don't think twice about, because we've just been told that it's part of the job, and that should never be the case. And the fact that this is still a problem in 2020, and the fact that, certain places women don't feel comfortable speaking up and speaking out about it because they know they'll get fired from their jobs. Like, things need to change. And, I have a lot of hope that things will. And there are some really incredible, like, men that I've gotten to work with that have spoken up and that make sure that my voice is heard, and that, that they're there for, their fellow, like, female colleagues, like, checking in. Like, it's not just, like, I think a lot of people too, they kind of ignore what's happening because they don't want to acknowledge that it's happening, and they don't want to be dragged into, like, the drama of it. But I think it gets overlooked a lot, especially for people that are starting out in the industry, of the interns, like the entry-level roles. People don't look out for them. And I've been really lucky that I've had, a few people that have been able to do that and help me through things. And, I'm grateful for that, but not everyone has that. And that's why I think it's so important that people that are in, like, a role like myself, or, all the way higher up, because you deal with it at every level, speak up about what's happened. Because when I had posted my thread of tweets, some of the DMs that I had gotten from, both men and women of saying, like, that they had no idea that this actually happened, that people still deal with this. And, it was really encouraging to hear so many, like, men reach out and be like, hey, could you talk some more to me about this? Like, I want to make sure I'm being a better ally for my female coworkers. That had just, all of the trauma that had been, like, reopened, just made it so much more worth it that I spoke up, to know that, people were actively wanting to be better and wanting to do it across the board, and all these different levels of collegiate athletics and different leagues. Like, it was something that just, it makes you feel better about speaking up, knowing that you might have helped someone else that wouldn't have gotten that help otherwise.
One point that I'm so glad that Alli brought up was how she would get in trouble for posting on her personal social medias her work that she's so proud of, and people thinking that she's trying to get close to the athletes. As a sports reporter that has been trying to build my own personal brand on my social media platforms, I have also experienced this. I have been told those same things, and I just want to say to the girls out there watching that also use their social medias to promote their work and tag the athletes, keep doing it. Just because someone thinks that you're trying to get in with the athletes when you're not, or someone is going to judge you, just ignore them and just really go with your gut. And if you're proud of your work, post it and tag them in it, because that's how your work is going to get noticed, and you do not need to be afraid of what other people might think or say about you doing that. I am also really glad that Alli brought up that not all men in the industry are bad, and I have a ton of guy friends that are just the biggest supporters of women in sports. And this segment and other movements about women in sports, we're not trying to bring guys down. We're just trying to get the same respect. And so we do see you, and we really appreciate all of the men out there that really do their best to uplift and empower women in sports. We thank you for that. That concludes this week's episode of Empower Women in Sports Wednesday. I really hope you all learned something from Alli or have left feeling empowered, because I for sure have. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Make sure to follow me on all social medias at Bunchell18 and Sports with Aaliyah. I'm everywhere. It's really easy to find me. Either give this video a thumbs up on YouTube or share it to your story on Instagram or retweet it. This will be posted everywhere, and all of the support just means the world. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next Wednesday.